I'm Pastor Barbara, pastor here at St. Mark's United Methodist Church, and we want to welcome all of you here tonight for our city focus with the mayor. Mayor, we welcome you. We're glad you could come, and everybody else that's here. We have refreshments over on the table. Please feel free to go anytime to get refreshed. And let's open with a word of prayer. Lord God, we are thankful for all of our leaders in our city, and we are thankful for this city. We know that there are concerns and that we need to address, and so Lord, I just ask that you would be with us this evening and help our thoughts be your thoughts and to know which direction to go. Just guide our discussion, and we just pray that we'll learn how we can better help our city. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. Mayor?
Good evening, everybody. Pastor, thank you for welcoming us and to the North End Neighborhood Association as well. We appreciate being invited. This, as was noted, is what we call a city focus meeting, which is kind of a traveling occasion where the staff and I, and often some council members, Sam McLean is here as well tonight, are here to talk about current activities and answer any questions that you might have. I did just learn where the word Methodist came from. I was told by the pastor that clock is set a little bit late so she gets to talk longer. So that's the reason we're in a Methodist church, to play with the clock. But it is good to be here. And there's a lot of activity in our community, a lot of good things going on. We'll talk about all of that, and as much as you like, actually, in as much detail as you like. So I want to begin with our HR director, Vince Ozier, and then we're going to just kind of do a round robin and have the staff each come up and do. Since Gary Shealy's here, there's no reason that anybody has to go 20 minutes like Gary, but we'll go like 3 to 5 minutes each, and we'll answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Again, my name is Vince Ozier. I'm the Director of Human Resources, and I've been with the city since 2002, so it's been quite a while now. And I have the honor of going first tonight because I've got an obligation, so when I get done, I'm going to walk out. But I've got another meeting that I've got to go to, so please forgive me. As far as what's going on in HR, we've done a fair amount of hiring, as you're probably aware this year. I was just looking at the list before I came in today. We've got something like 15 new hires, full-time employees in this year that have started in 2016. And we may have a few more before the year is out. That includes about 5 police officers and 3 firefighters, I think, that started in 2016. And right now, we're in the process of recruiting for the Department of Community Development, the director for that position. As you probably are aware, Amy Oden will be leaving the city's employment at the end of November. So we're looking for a replacement. We're also looking for a neighborhood specialist. We've got another employee that's in that role right now that has announced that they're going to be leaving the city, and so we're looking for that person's replacement. And then we're looking for water treatment plant operators, and licensed water treatment plant operators and wastewater treatment plant operators in both of our treatment plants. And then we've got another opportunity that we just put on the city's website in the last couple of days for property maintenance code inspector 3. Because we've got a vacancy in that position right now. And then another position that we're attempting to get filled that's a little more difficult, frankly, is what's referred to as our admin GIS technician position. And GIS stands for Geographic Information System. So basically it's a skilled software person that takes a look at the database that we have and then uses the data so we can gather more information and use information more effectively about how to manage the city's resources. And it's a fairly new and evolving skill set. And so finding people that can do that right now is difficult, and so we're struggling with that. But hopefully we'll have a new ad out for that position in the next few weeks. And then just one other little piece of information, we're up to about 400 full-time employees at the city. At one point we were down to about 365. When I started in the city in 2002, I want to say we were around about 420 employees. Through some difficult budget times, we got down to as low as about 365, but now we're back up to about 400 full-time employees. That's all I have. If anybody's got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Does that number include the police and fire?
Yes, it does. It does. As a matter of fact, and the chief could probably, either the chief could speak to this in greater detail about their numbers, but both of those, the police and fire departments are more fully staffed than they were just a few years ago. So. Great, thank you. Thanks.
Along those lines, I should just mention that whether you believe it or not, the economy in our area is very strong. You might recall that about 3 months ago, the Lima News had a Sunday paper above the fold story that proclaimed that there were 1,500 jobs available within a 10-mile radius of Lima. And the principal reaction from folks that I talked to in a week or so after that was, we don't believe it. It's true. People are hiring in every segment of the economy. There are help wanted signs. And it's at the entire range of the spectrum of opportunities. It's from the very unskilled to the very skilled. And so I have invited folks from Ohio Means Jobs to come once a month to my weekly press conference to talk about those jobs, because folks don't believe it. It's the case that really until about 2 years ago, all of our economic development efforts were focused on creating jobs. 2 years ago, we began to see this momentum where lots of businesses were talking about their hiring needs. And we have now flipped over in terms of the work that's going on with the economic development team to being focused on workforce, to being focused on job training, to being focused on how do we connect the right people with those jobs. And just last week, the staff from Ohio Means Jobs was at the press conference, and they said that that number is now no longer 1,500, it's about 1,350. But that's a dynamic number. That number is changing all the time. Some people getting hired, and new businesses actually continuing to grow. So I think coming out of this, we really have to begin to kind of change the way we talk with our kids, the way our guidance counselors begin to advise students about what the opportunities are here, because they're real. And again, they're in technical fields like GIS, they're in safety service fields, they're in healthcare, they're in construction. There's just an enormous set of activities here in our region that require talent and people that are willing to work hard. So just want to add that too. Not only are we hiring modestly at the city, but in the region, people are hiring. So, Chief Black from McClellan.
Thanks, everyone. Most of you probably do not know me. My name is Bruce Black. I'm the new fire chief for the Lima Fire Department. I took over for Chief Efner here the 1st of July. So this is kind of new for me. I'll probably be a little slim, but I'll answer your questions. One thing about the fire department has 74 sworn firefighters at this time, and 1 civilian secretary, so we have a total of 75 employees in the fire department. We have a minimum staffing level of 16 firefighters on duty at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do staff 3 engine companies. There's an engine company in each of the 3 fire stations. Closest fire station to your neighborhood group is, of course, over here at Robin West. That station is staffed with a 3-man engine company. They're not always in the station at all times. They're answering calls whenever the calls come into them, and they're also doing training and checking hydrants and stuff like that during the day. So a lot of times during the day, they might not be in the station. We also man 2 ambulances around the clock. They are advanced life support ambulances with 1 paramedic at least on each ambulance at all times. We also do staff a rescue unit, a heavy rescue unit, and that unit is cross-staffed with what we call a EMS chase vehicle. Those employees on that heavy rescue, if a call comes in for a fire call or an automobile accident, they go out with the heavy rescue. If it's strictly just a medical call, they will switch over to our smaller chase vehicle. One thing you gotta understand, as far as medical calls in the city of Lima, we handle a little over 1/2 of all the 911 medical calls in the city. Lima Allen County Paramedics is licensed through the city of Lima to provide EMS service also. They handle close to half the calls in the city. And not only do we respond on calls for us, we also first respond on the major medical calls with Lima Allen County Paramedics. So this year, our department we're on track right now to do approximately 5,500 calls of service this year. This is the highest we have ever had. And right now, if we stay on track for that number, it'll be a 7% increase in call load over last year. So our guys are busy, they're working hard, and we're providing a top quality service for the people of Lima. If you would come into the fire department today, and you would have came into the fire department 10 years ago, we are vastly different today than we were then. We are very much more into community service and providing as much service as we can to the community. So, is there any questions that you have? Yes?
How many did you say was on the heavy equipment truck if they down there?
On the heavy rescue, we have 2 firefighters on that. They can be anywhere from a first responder up to a paramedic, depending on the day.
Okay, so if I'm having a heart attack, then the paramedic that comes in the ambulance, he's going to drive. So it's one of the guys from the heavy duty that work on me back
The
ambulance.
paramedic, if we have an EMT basic and a paramedic on the ambulance, the paramedic will stay with you if you are having a cardiac event. Also, if let's say you're unconscious and we're in what we call a code, where a person is not breathing and does not have a heartbeat, we will strip a truck down to ride in with our ambulance. Or we would do that also with Lima Allen County Paramedics. The one thing that we have purchased in the last 2 years, or last year actually, is we have 2 of them in the department now. They are called cardiac machines. And what it does is the machine wraps around your body and it does chest compressions on you. Now we are taught, all of us are taught CPR to do manual chest compressions, but this machine does it a lot better. It does it the correct way all the time, every time. Where a human being is doing CPR over a period of time, they get tired. And as they get tired, it does not, the chest compressions are not as good a quality. This machine has already brought back probably 3 or 4 people from complete cardiac arrest to a heartbeat, and they brought it back to life. So now the machine's not cheap. The machine's around $15,000, but I think the cost is worth it. Any other questions? Yes.
Do you anticipate hiring more paramedics or training more people?
We have a requirement in the current collective bargaining agreement with the IAFF Local 334 as far as a paramedic requirement for the job now. We are required, according to this current contract, once we make, we have to get to 30 paramedics on the department that are on shift work, which is the guys that work 24-hour shifts. And once we get to that level, then guys by seniority would be allowed to drop back to EMT basics, but we have to get to that level first. So, yeah, there is a paramedic requirement. And paramedic school now is 15 to 18 months of class time in hospital time. It's a very extensive program. Any other questions? Yeah.
I was just curious, Bruce, just question that came to my mind. Are you looking for someone to do an in-service training, especially with my visual impairment for the new firefighters, because I'm willing?
Okay. You know Chief Berger? I think you worked with him before.
I think so.
You gave us one here probably, what, 2 years ago?
I gave
Maybe three. 3 years ago?
I think your partner was 4.
4 years?
Yeah.
If you get a hold of Chief Berger, he's in charge of training with the department. He'd be glad to sign for you to come in to all these shifts.
Okay, because I've worked with you before too.
Yeah, yes you did. Back then, I think when you did that, I was in charge of training as a deputy chief.
And I didn't know I was going to spend 3.5 hours with one of the firefighters showing me through every piece of equipment, not knowing I would need it with one too.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it?
Listen, I was intimidated by the ambulance, believe me. And when Rick showed me around in that every piece of equipment, not knowing that in 2013 I got so sick I needed you guys. You came out once or twice to pick me up. So
I'm glad we could help you. That's what we are here for. We are here to provide a service to you, and it is a top quality service, but it does not come cheap. So, I think, one thing, I want to bring up one thing before I close out. We kind of always get, I guess would be a complaint of large trucks being out on calls. And those are out for a reason. For one thing, we're the only guy in town that still does fire calls. But as like most other departments in the nation today, most of the calls are medical calls. But we still have to be available to answer fire calls. But part of our job is, like I said before, is not only do we respond with our ambulance on major medical calls, we also respond with the private ambulance on major medical calls. And those personnel need to stay with their truck. So, and that one thing is, even though we have cut our station numbers from 5 to 3, those stations are still the closest to get to a medical call. And part of our job to make a better service is we get to the people that need our help as quickly as we possibly can. And that's why those trucks have our guys on, so they stay with the truck. And there's a lot of times they'll go from one medical call to another medical call, or they'll go from a medical call to a fire call. And we just do not have the luxury of the time to go back to the station and switch out trucks and then get on the bid trucks and go out. So I know it is, you might think it's economical, but it's in the best interest of the people we serve that we do it that way. And that's why we do it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
That was good for a first time up. Rick Sally's here, our Parks Director. Thank you, Mayor, and it's always good to get back up to the north end. Having one of our
great parks here in the city of Lima, anchoring on the north end. It's always great to be up here, and we're truly proud of what Rock Park brings to this community. A couple of things about what we're going through, kind of a transition phase right now. We are wrapping up, or have wrapped up, our summer programming. Very successful summer. We had 54, 55 teams in our youth baseball and softball programs. Had about 210, 215 kids in our summer playground program, which one of our sites is right here at Rob, which is always a great site to visit. And our adult programming is wrapped up just about 2 weeks ago with our over 50 league in the last months to wrap up the adult summer program. So we're transitioning now, getting ready for our winter programming, which will include both guys and gals, youth basketball. And we expect somewhere between 60 and 70 teams throughout Lima and the community involved in that activity. You'll see us starting to transition our parks as well. And we'll start closing some things down towards the end of next month, so in about a month. We'll start closing down the restrooms as the weather gets colder. As you know, those are not heated facilities. So to avoid the plumbing issues in the spring, when everybody can't wait to get back in the park, we start to close those down a little bit, and start closing those down at the end of October and doing all the things we need to winterize those facilities, fountains, and all those things as well. So again, transitioning time of year for us. One of the things we did not expect at this time of year is to be mowing as much as we are. All summer, we had all of our summer help, our casual help, working with us, and as soon as they went back to school, it started raining again, the grass started growing, and the guys are chasing their tails, and that's okay. And we're here to provide the service, as Chief said. We want the parks to be as nice as they can be, as long as they can be, before the snow starts to fly. So we're looking forward to a terrific winter, and don't let the cold weather keep you from coming out and doing a little sledding. And just get out and walk and enjoy the leaves changing in the parks. We see a real uptick in pedestrian traffic at that time, so please feel free to come out and enjoy what the parks have to offer. We're very blessed to have the facilities that we have in this community and available to everyone. Are there any questions?
Rick, are
Yes,
you going to
sir.
have, are you going to have possible cross-country ski this year, or is that gone?
Well, it's pretty much gone. The grant we had, I've been with the city a little over 10 years now, and it was on its way out when I came on board. We started to refurbish some of the equipment, but as age has crept into those skis and the shoes that people have to wear with those, we still invite people to do that with their equipment, but our equipment and matching up sizes and so forth for people is kind of dwindled down. But it's a great sport. It's a great opportunity to get out and enjoy the parks as well. Anyone else? Very good. Thank you very much.
I hope everybody's been watching the construction activity on Bellefontaine Avenue with the Lima Stadium Park. That, of course, will finish up, we expect by the middle of November to have the construction done. And then next spring, we'll have hopefully grass all seeded, and the children's fountain will be working, and everybody will really appreciate, I think, how much of a destination that park will become. I had, years ago when I originally asked the local architect, Chuck Ditto, to draw the first drawing of what it would look like if we removed the houses and carved that hill down. My sense of place was always looking at it from the street. And 2 weeks ago, I was at a football game there and sitting in the stands and got to see what it looks like from the stadium's point of view. And it really is wonderful. It opened up the whole vista. So not only will the traveling public who will be driving by have a different kind of experience of coming into our community, but those who are at the stadium and looking out will also, I think, have an entirely different and really wonderful perspective to enjoy games and whether it's football or track and field and the like. So it'll be a great new addition to our community. I want to invite Chief Martin to come up and talk a little bit about what's going on with the police department.
Good evening. First off, I want to start off by saying that this is actually the second time in roughly about a month that I've been inside this building. Only a few short weekends ago, I was able to take part in an event that St. Mark's United Methodist was holding called Lifesaver Sunday. And again, this is just an opportunity for me to publicly say thank you to Pastor Barb and for everyone else who was involved in putting it together. It was an incredible event. It is also one of those types of events that's the reason why I keep gaining weight even when I want to. Because after the service, they had an incredible meal right down here in this room. And so again, thank you very much for all of that. And it means a lot more to us than you may even realize. So again, we are grateful. And in fact, we're very grateful for all the outpouring of community support we've had over the last several months. It's easy to get caught up looking at the negative, when really there is just so much good in our community that I think from time to time we should, at the police department, we need to be more cognizant about taking time to celebrate that good. As far as what's going on in the police department, there is always a lot going on. On the positive side of things, we just swore in 5 new police officers yesterday. One of whom will be a school resource officer for the city schools, and the 4 will be coming to work on the streets here in Lima as patrol officers for the LPD. And we also have another gentleman by the name of David Berger, who's currently completing his police academy at the Ohio State Highway Patrol Academy. And as soon as he completes that, he'll be back here and placed in our field training program to again be working the streets and as a patrol officer for the city. So. Staffing-wise, as Vince Ozier had mentioned, we are actually in better shape than we've been in a lot of years. And I am grateful to City Council and to the Mayor and the Finance Director for helping to make all that possible. Because technology is a good thing, but one of the things we found out in the early part of the century was that we can become easily too dependent on technology and forget about those relationships that we need in the community. And in order to build those relationships, we've got to have people that are out there engaging with other people. And so that's why having that additional staff is a very, very good thing for us. And I will let you know that we are continuing outreach efforts both through the city schools with the school resource officer programs, the various efforts of the neighborhood officers like Officer Miracle, your own police officer here. And also, we're doing a lot of other work, just again, various efforts to try to get people out there engaging on positive way or in positive ways with other people. I'm also very encouraged by some of the outreach efforts that are being undertaken on the grassroots level by people outside the police department. I had an opportunity to attend the first meeting of what is being called Project Ceasefire, which was actually organized by one of our members of City Council, Derry Glenn, and also the former director of the Municipal Center, Vicki Sherrills. Again, I'm just very, very encouraged by that because there was a group of about 15 kids that had come together, not wanting to just sit around and complain about things not being the way that they wanted, but truly, sincerely seeking ways that they can get involved and help make things better. And I had to think that they were actually a good reminder to me of what I need to be about. So it is a very positive. There's a lot of good positive things going on there in the community. On the negative side of things, we are seeing an increase in crime, especially violent crime. I think much of that is directly related to the continued issues or problems we're having with drugs. And most notably on the drug scene, we're continuing to see an increase in the use of opiates, including heroin. And we are averaging multiple overdoses a week right here in Lima. Now, I will tell you that most of those overdoses do not result in death because the officers and the fire department are equipped with Narcan. And that's something that, and I must say thank you to Chief Black's department because they've actually helped provide extra training for our police officers to help better recognize and be better equipped to administer the Narcan when we run into those issues. But we were seeing in many cases the same people overdosing time and time again. And we knew that something had to be done about that. And so I was very, very thankful that Mike Shanehoff with the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board stepped up to create a new position to help create one within Coleman Behavioral Health. And that is a service navigator that is actually going to be working in many cases, not solely with our neighborhood officers, but in many cases they will be working in concert with our neighborhood officers, so that when we have somebody who overdoses, or if we have other reasons to suspect some type of substance abuse, we're going to be able to try to connect that person with the services that they need to try to beat that addiction, to try to overcome it and get it recovered. Because again, it's one thing to go out and administer Narcan and bring somebody back and pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, hey, great, wonderful, we saved a life. And that is a good thing. But we also have to look at, are we really saving that life if they're staying in that same cycle? And so, again, that's where the partnership with Coleman, I think, is going to be an incredibly worthwhile and positive one. There will be additional information about this navigator coming out from the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board in the very near future. So I don't want to steal all of their thunder, but again, it's those grassroots efforts from the community that really is going to allow us to overcome these problems that we have in our city. And again, that's one of those things where it's easy to get focused on the negative, all the people that are overdosing. But at the same time, we need to be dealing with those negatives, but we also have to be focusing on those positives that are out there in the community and all of the grassroots efforts that are coming forward. And I realize when I speak to a group like this, I'm really speaking to the choir. So, I know you're already willing to get involved, but you wouldn't be here tonight. So let me just also say thank you to all of you for all your efforts.
Now, I want to introduce a gentleman who has been here before, but always in a different capacity. This is our new Gary Sheely. He will be, as Gary retires at the end of November, Mike takes over as the new freshman in the department. Been there 44 years. Yeah. Maybe more. So he should know his way around, so if he screws up tonight, what would it take?
I'm sorry I'm dressed like this because I came from work to here. So unlike probably a lot of the other staff members, just saying. We've got a lot going on in the utilities department. As you know, we're the water department, sewer department, and the youth department. Water and sewer wise is what I'm going to talk about. As you all probably recall, over the past 5 years, we've done a lot of major projects on the water side. And I tell you, this year they're kind of coming to fruition. We built a new reservoir, finished it back in 2011, and filled it a couple years later. And we have relied on that this year. Rick talked about snow mowing the grass, and we're doing the same thing at the reservoirs. Remember how dry it was in June and July, and the first half of August? We couldn't pump any water back in the reservoirs. We were full when we started, but I'm very, very thankful, the whole community should be thankful that we have that other reservoir right now, because we're in good shape water supply. If we didn't have the new Williams Reservoir with 5.1 billion gallons in it, I'd be probably losing a few more here. There ain't none left on there, you know, not much now, I'm just saying. So that's a good thing, you know. We spent a lot of money on that, but money well spent. We also upgraded the water plant. We put granular activated carbon in that water plant. We spent $15 million on that project. I've been around, as the mayor said, a long time, participated in a lot of construction projects. That was probably the most complicated one we ever had because we pretty much built another water plant on and attached it to the existing water plant. You know, you can't shut the water plant down. And that does operate 24/7. And we did a lot of upset people, a lot of upset industries around here. So we built that, and shortly after we had that built, remember Toledo had a problem with algae. We won't have that problem because carbon takes those algae compounds out of the water. So we were ahead of the curve on that. And I'm proud of the department for what we was able to do and get that built. We did it. We also built a new water tower. Shortly after that, built a pump station in the base of that water tower, and that allowed us to expand water clear out to Westminster where Rudolph Foods is at. So, we kind of looked to the future and built them lines big enough that we can get them out there and bring other people on board. We have the supply to do it, so we do it. Now, that's the good side. Okay? Now we're talking about wastewater. Something a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it is important because you do want to flush that handle and have everything go away and have it not pollute the river. Okay? We're under mandates from the U.S. EPA. We've been under negotiations with them. We were in negotiations with them for probably 10 years now. The mayor was very, very active in those negotiations. We finally entered into a consent decree last year. It's going to cost this community about $150 million to do all the projects that the U.S. EPA, the federal judge, has signed off on we have to do. So we're really right now probably in the middle of those projects, or somewhere close to being in the middle. We're doing major renovations on our wastewater plants out on Fort Amanda Road across the refinery. We're replacing the whole head works of that plant. It's a $27 million project, just that project itself. So things are, and to keep the plant going again, as we're doing the construction, it's almost like a juggling act. So we're doing it and doing fine without violations. The next phase now, and we've done a few, I'm just going to talk about the big stuff. There's a lot of smaller stuff. When I say small stuff, it's $2 or $3 million jobs, which are big jobs. But we're right now just started the design on a new basin that we're going to build in the Simmons Field area. It won't affect the ball field. It'll be on the west side of there. There's going to be a large retention basin. Every time I say that, it makes me nervous because the tank has to be 13 million gallon tank. Now, put it in perspective, 13 million. The water tower on South Metcalf, everybody probably has seen that. You ought to see it now, from Rusty is that. We're getting ready to paint it, by the way, so. Yeah. But that tower, as big as it is, that holds 1 million gallon. That's a pretty big tank up there. We have to put underground 13 million gallon tank. So that when we have heavy rains, the water from the river, and the water in the sewers, instead of going back into the river, we'll go to that retention basin, and then we can slowly pump it back to our wastewater plant when the flows go down, so we don't have so many overflows in the river. Well, our mandate is to do that 13 million gallon basin, and the cost of that is about $40 million for that one project. Now, we've been very active, and thanks to the mayor and the contacts he has with Washington, D.C., and with the Ohio legislature, we're looking at some very, very low interest, maybe even zero interest money that we're going to borrow to do that project, which makes it a lot more doable, and we can do it hopefully within the timelines that the EPA is going to require us to do it. So we're working on the design of that right now. We put our engineers on fast track because we really have to get that thing designed and out to bid by the end of next year so we can be eligible to get the money that we've applied for. So if we get the money, it's less on all the customers' pocketbook, So we've been a very, very busy department. A lot's been going on. Like the mayor said, we're doing some changes right now within the department. You know, Gary has been director for a long, long time. He's retiring. I've been the deputy director for a long, long time, and I'm moving into the tax channel. Actually, technically, I have moved into the director spot, thanks to council approving the mayor appointing me as director. Me and Gary are pretty much co-directors right now. We did that so we could get my replacement in there and have some time to train him before he had to really go into a full board. And Saul Allen is now the deputy director of utilities, which was my old job. So a lot of things are happening. There's a lot of balls juggling here at the same time, but we're surviving and things are well. So I don't want to talk as long as Gary used to, because I catch heck. Gary used to go, I don't know, but I think the chief, the fire chief, outdid Gary today. You talk longer than Gary, just so you know that. You broke the record. I'm a man of few words. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Talk about garbage.
What?
Talk about the garbage.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
I do want to mention that back in the spring, I was privileged to be asked to represent the U.S. Conference of Mayors and testify before the U.S. Senate on legislation on the changes to the Clean Water Act that would give cities tools to be able to better manage these mandates. And the result, I had previously in 2012 and 2014, I had testified before the House on the same topics. What's occurred since then is that about 3 weeks after I testified, the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works actually voted on a bill and passed it 19-1. So that meant it had about, I'd say, 85% of the recommendations that the Conference of Mayors had advocated for. And then last week, that bill went to the full Senate and in fact got passed out by a vote of 95-3. So now that's just one half of the process. It also, a similar bill now has to traverse through the House. We think that a compatible bill may emerge maybe this week, maybe next. If it passes out of committee, it then has to go to the full House, and then ultimately it has to go to the conference committee. So despite all of the real paralysis in DC, this particular issue just may get solved by the end of the year. And the reason that that's so important to us is that, first of all, what we're doing, actually, we were the first city in the United States to get a consent decree based upon what's called the integrated planning process. And it could be assumed that now having that consent decree, everything's solved. Well, it's not. Because first of all, we're going to continue to see lots of additional mandates coming from Washington. And if at some point we find ourselves in a circumstance where we can't truly afford what's being asked, we need to have not just a possibility of renegotiating, we also have to have real law that gives us some shelter. And that's the reason that I've been spending so much time, is for a long-term solution on this issue. And I'm pleased to be able to say that it looks like we're getting there. And hopefully that'll all happen by year's end. Of course, if it doesn't happen by year's end, then what happens in November also has a huge impact on what unexpected challenges might we have come next year. So it's something we all need to continue to be paying attention to. Our finance director, Steve Blaze, is here, and I want to mention that Steve's been a hugely effective presence in helping us manage coming out of the Great Recession. And basically, as was recited earlier, one of the principal ways that we managed coming out was to shrink. We didn't lay people off. We simply took advantage of the retirements, the turnover that was happening. And we started early enough to get ahead of the problem so that we were able to reduce our spending. And as a result, we're really very well positioned now to be able to do some modest hiring that we think we can sustain for the long term. And that's due to Steve's work and his gentle touch with all of the department. Steve?
Thank you. I'm going to follow up on some comments made by the two safety services chiefs and also there's comments on the economy in the area. I have some handouts here on a report that was issued just recently by the Ohio Bureau of Labor Data Statistics. And Ohio went through some rough times in 2008 and 9 when the recession hit. We had unemployment at about 12%. And historically, up to that point in time, the unemployment rate would be around 5 or so. The city of Lima, say for the 5 or 10 years prior to the recession, had an unemployment rate that was about 1% higher than the national average. Well, what's happened since 2008 and 9 is that we are at the national average now. Our unemployment rate has dropped all the way down to about 4.5%. 4.6. And that's in the Lima metro area. And that is really extremely good news. And that's reflected in our finances. We see our business profits going up in the tax department substantially. They've increased by almost 10% a year for the last 3 or 5 years. And our taxes this year overall in the withholding area, those are generally larger employees who withhold taxes. They're actually required to. And their tax receipts have been up about 3-4% a year consistently, and they're up about 3-4% a year this year. And that's helping us maintain our financial position. We have over a 20% cash reserve. We have challenges. Vince Ogier mentioned that we had squeezed our labor down from over 400 to about 260 or so. And that was over a 10% reduction in labor. We got by dubbing up and had a lot of temporary contractors. So since then, we're back up to 400. Most all those people are in safety services. So, I mean, we've got a big additional expense we have to carry and maintain. You know, one is to be a short-term, hiring this year and then squeeze down 2 years later. But things look like we can maintain our existing workforce going forward in the city is in good shape. We sent out the budget instructions to the departments this week, and it's basically to our current level of manpower and spending as much as possible. Although we do have built-in labor contract cost increases and health costs increases of somewhere around 5% a year, and that can be anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 a year, just inflation, to maintain the current labor force. Also, in the statistics, you can pick up a copy of the labor statistics in the state of Ohio if you wish. Salaries. Measuring from August, this report is at the end of August of 2016, the 12-month period from August 2015 to 16, the average the wage of an employee in the Lima metro area went up almost 8%, 7.7%. So that is quite an improvement. I mean, that's something that we've seen hinted at in our tax collections, and our labor stats, they confirm that. So this region of the state, Allen County, has come back strongly in the economy, and that's good news for Lima. It's good news for Allen County and the surrounding area. So basically, in the finance area, we're in pretty good shape. We need to maintain our 20% cash reserve. I think we've done it without treating our employees fairly. We've actually given them wage increases all during this recession. Sometimes over 1% or 1.5%, 2%. The standard now is about a 2% increase a year. And that's something that we didn't see happening almost anywhere throughout the state. So we managed that, and we managed to actually strengthen our finances and our cash balance. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I'll just comment on a couple projects, and then I'll just open it up for any other questions. We have three major projects that are happening in our downtown. And one that we've been pregnant with for a while, which is the Road State project. That I announced with Dr. McCurdy about, I guess, 2 months ago, that the city would be stepping up. We have an agreement in principle with them that we would be providing some significant funding for the project, about $3 million over time, that will be derived from the city's hotel motel tax. We will also be assisting them in acquiring the rest of the real estate that's needed for the project. And we will also be managing the demolition and site clearance process. They don't really have a technical staff as we do, engineers and the like, to do that. So those are three aspects of that project that are getting underway. We're still working with the Attorney General's office on coming to a written agreement about all of that, but we're not letting the task of writing the agreement stop us from actually working the work and getting the project going. Also today, actually, there was a representative of the WODA group in town to talk publicly about where they are with the renovation of the First National Bank building. That too is, they've got about 80% of their engineering and architectural planning done. They expect to have the final piece of the financing in place sometime in December, and by June 1st of next year they'll be under construction on what will be about a $17 million project there across the way from my office. For those of you that may remember, that building went vacant in January of 1990. That was 1 month after I took office. So I have looked out my office window for 27 years, hoping someday to see it renewed. There was one serious effort back about 10 years ago when the current owner, Mike O'Connor, was applying for and received historic tax credit from the state. But then just couldn't put the rest of it together. What is so exciting about this development is that we're working with a company that is considered among the top 3 developers in the state of Ohio. And we're working with a group that is going to build it for themselves, meaning they're not in this to do a renovation and flip it to somebody else's ownership. Everything that they develop is done for their own long-term portfolio. So they're going to be a part of us for a long time. And I think the quality of what they do is something that we will all stand back and applaud once it's completed. The other major project that has also been in the works for about 3 years is the new campus that Dominion Gas is going to build on Jackson and Pine. That too we expect will be under construction next year. So the coming couple of years, there is going to be an enormous amount of downtown development. And we expect that as that happens, we will continue to see a variety of smaller scale entrepreneurial efforts happen in the downtown, restaurants, office space, other kinds of niche development that I think everybody will appreciate. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Yes?
The building that you're going to tear down for the college, aren't there some people occupying some of the apartments?
Well, the footprint of the roads project will not involve all parcels in the southeast quadrant. It will not involve the Kerwin Hotel, and it will not involve the building at the corner of Spring and Main. So most of the rest of the building, I mean, none of the rest of them are occupied. So those buildings, the remaining portion, and then the actual footprint of the building will be between the plaza area and the alley. The alley will be maintained, and then it'll be about a 3-story, 75,000 square foot complex. And then there'll be some surface parking on the remaining portion. Yes, Steve?
Am I right in understanding Wayne's going to revert to two-lane?
Correct.
Not one-way, but go two-way? And what is the timeline on that?
The plan is to convert Wayne Street, just like we did Spring Street, from one-way to two-way. And it's all entirely dependent upon when we can successfully compete for funding. So it's at least probably 3 years out. I think we finally got funding for the High Street improvements that will be taking place. Or else I've got a bad memory, but I think. Pardon? Yes, I know. Yes, Mr.
This isn't a question, but I was downtown today. You know where Wenger's is?
Yes.
Well, on that corner, I was walking, and it was a good thing I was looking down, because there is a hole about this big around, which is very deep. Had I ever hit a foot in it, I think someone could have a real serious accident there. I was going to call the city, but by the time I was running around today, it was too late to get home. But that should be attended to.
It's in the sidewalk?
Yeah, but there must have been something like a pole or something. It looks like something had been there once, but it was removed, but they left the hole.
Okay, thank you. We'll check into it.
What's the, Mr. Mayor, what's the status on the railroad crossing on Bellfound Avenue?
We are scheduled for another presentation on that before what's called the TRAC, which is the state of Ohio's large transportation projects committee.
Okay.
And that is, I think, October the 13th. So we're basically seeking the remaining funding. It's about $12 million for the construction. We're right now also in the process. We were awarded some money from the TRAC a year ago, which was about, my recollection is it was about $2 million to actually buy the right-of-way The right-of-way would be for the widening of Shawnee, a widening of the intersection of Shawnee and Elm, and then a widening of Elm Street for the project. And so the two real estate firms that are qualified to make highway-related purchases have now been retained, and we think that those contacts with property owners along there should take place in, I think, the fourth quarter of this year.
Okay. So you've got that car wash that's right near those tracks that they just built.
Right.
Does that mean that that is going to be possibly taken by eminent domain? Eminent domain?
No, sir.
Okay.
The grade separation will not occur on Bell Fountain.
Oh,
It's going to occur on Elm Street.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that had it been planned for Elm Street, it would have added, or for Bell Fountain, it would have added about $3 million in additional real estate costs, and it would have ruined the real estate for any other purpose. If you just look at where Easter Tire was. Easter Tire now sits way above street level, and any kind of the park will be unaffected.
Is the old laundry service before that? That old laundry service building's brown building. There's a laundry service.
Where Fisher Cheese was will be affected, and where the corner cafe was will be affected. Yes. Councilor McLean, do you have any comments?
Just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I don't really have a lot to say. You guys have gone over everything. We really appreciate you coming to our meeting tonight.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I would personally like to thank you for all the work that you put in on the EPA mandate.
Thank you. It's been very frustrating. Very frustrating. Nothing else? I don't know, is it, what, for that clock, what is the Methodist time on that clock?
This time is anything you want to make it. Anything you want to make it.
Well, thank you all, we very much appreciate being here.
I'd like to thank the mayor and the staff for coming tonight. I'd like to thank everybody else for attending. I just want to announce the next Northside Neighborhood Association meeting will be October the 18th, 7 o'clock right here. Grab some refreshments before you leave, and thanks again for everybody coming.